Darling, no wine tonight. Or is it because you're on antibiotics for the gonorrhea you contracted during your cruise? But then my daughter dropped an unexpected bombshell. The dining room was bathed in warm golden light, the kind that should have been comforting. Instead, it revealed secrets lurking in every corner. I sat at the head of the table, the patriarch of a family I thought I knew inside out. My wife, Clara, was seated to my right, her delicate hands folded in her lap, her smile strained. Across from her, our daughter, Isabel, fidgeted with her wine glass, her expression unreadable. "Shall we toast?" I said, raising my glass with deliberate calm. The room buzzed with polite laughter, but my heart was pounding. The toast wasn't for celebration. It was the first move in a game of exposure. I had uncovered Clara's betrayal, and tonight, I would confront her. From the outside, my life was enviable. Clara and I were the kind of couple that made others envious at dinner parties. She was sophisticated, with an effortless charm that lit up any room she entered. I had built a thriving career as a senior partner at an investment firm, earning enough to provide us with a beautiful townhouse in Kensington and private schooling for our daughter, Isabel. To everyone else, we were living a dream life. But dreams, I've learned, can be deceptive. It started with small things, shifts so subtle they were easy to dismiss. Clara began spending more time away from home, citing art exhibits and late meetings with gallery clients. She had always been passionate about her work, but now she seemed distracted, even when she was with us. Her laughter, once genuine and warm, had become a distant echo, a performance meant to hide something I couldn't yet see. Isabel noticed it too. "Mom's been acting weird lately," she said one evening as we set the dinner table together. She glanced toward the hallway, where Clara was on another whispered phone call. "Do you think she's okay?" she asked. "She's fine," I said quickly, not wanting to alarm her. But I wasn't so sure. Clara's calls always ended the moment I entered the room. Her phone, once carelessly left on counters, was now guarded like a state secret. When I asked her about it, she laughed, brushing me off with a light-hearted, "Work stuff, darling. You wouldn't be interested." Maybe I would have been if not for the growing knot of unease in my stomach. The turning point came when Clara announced she was going on a cruise, just a week after she set her tone casual. "My old university friends and I have been planning it for years. You understand, don't you?" I nodded, though my gut told me otherwise. Clara was many things, but spontaneous wasn't one of them. She thrived on planning, on structure. A last-minute getaway didn't fit her character. Still, I didn't protest. I told myself I was overthinking, that she deserved a break. When she left, I watched her taxi disappear down the street, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. For the first time in years, I felt like I was alone with my thoughts I didn't want to confront. The house was eerily quiet in Claire's absence. Isabel was back at university, and I found myself wandering from room to room, trying to fill the emptiness. It wasn't long before I noticed things that didn't add up. The first clue came by accident. I was looking for a pen in Clara's desk when I found a scarf tucked in the back of a drawer. It wasn't hers. The pattern was bold and bright, not matching her refined taste. I picked it up, my mind racing. Could it belong to one of her friends? Or was it something else entirely? Then there was her iPad. She had forgotten it at home, leaving it on the kitchen counter. I wasn't one to snoop, but when a notification lit up the screen, I couldn't help but look. "Can't wait to see you again," the message read. The sender's name was cryptic, just am, but the intimacy of the words was unmistakable. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a joke, a harmless message from a friend, but deep down, I knew better. Clara's secrecy, her sudden absences, her guarded phone calls, it all pointed to something more. My unease turned to suspicion, and suspicion demanded answers. The next clue came from her credit card statement. I wasn't usually one to check, but something compelled me to log in. Among the usual expenses, groceries, gallery purchases, there was a charge from a luxury hotel in Venice, a city nowhere near the cruise itinerary she had given me. The walls of my perfect life were beginning to crack. By the time Clara returned from her trip, I was a man teetering on the edge of certainty and denial. I had to know the truth, but I needed proof. proof that couldn't be explained away. That's when I decided to hire a private investigator. The PI was efficient and discreet, promising results within a week. I handed him the details I had: the scarf, the cryptic text, the hotel charge. Follow the trail, I told him. I need to know everything. Days passed in excruciating silence. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart leapt, only to sink again when it wasn't the call I was waiting for. Meanwhile, Clara carried on as if nothing had happened. She kissed me goodnight, cooked elaborate dinners, even suggested we plan a family vacation. Her performance was flawless, and for a moment I almost believed her. Then the PI called. His voice was calm but firm. You were right. I've sent you the photos. My hands shook as I opened the email. There she was, Clara, walking arm in arm with a man I didn't recognize. The photos were clear, incriminating the two of them laughing over wine at a cafe, sharing a kiss on a gondola in Venice, disappearing into the same hotel room. The man was Alexander Mikhoff, a Russian art dealer with a reputation for scandal. A quick search confirmed what the PI had told me. Mikhoff was a regular in Clara's world of galleries and auctions. He was wealthy, charming, and dangerous, a man who thrived on taking what he wanted. But the final piece of the puzzle was the most damning. The PI had obtained Clara's medical records, showing that days after her return, she had visited our family doctor and been prescribed antibiotics. The diagnosis: gonorrhea. My stomach turned. This wasn't just betrayal. It was humiliation on a scale I hadn't imagined. My wife of 25 years had risked everything, not just for another man, but for a fling so reckless it endangered our health. As I stared at the evidence, rage bubbled up inside me. But I didn't confront Clara immediately. No, that would be too easy. Instead, I began to plan. She had built her lies carefully, and I would dismantle them piece by piece. The dining room was a stage set for confrontation. A long oak table stretched between us, adorned with Clara's best china and fresh flowers, a facade of normality masking the storm brewing underneath. The occasion was meant to celebrate Isabel's return from university and Clara's parents visiting from France, but for me, it was the perfect backdrop to unveil the truth. Clara was in her element, chatting animatedly with her parents about an upcoming gallery opening. Isabel sat quietly, picking at her salad, her focus distant. I watched Clara closely, noting every calculated smile, every practiced laugh. She was a master of appearances, but tonight I intended to destroy her performance. As the main course was served, I raised my glass. The crystal caught the light in a way that felt almost symbolic. A toast, I began, my voice calm but firm. Everyone turned to me, their faces expectant. To family and to honesty, Clara echoed, lifting her glass with a practiced smile. I let the silence linger, the weight of my words pressing down on the room. Darling, I said, turning to Clara, no wine tonight, or is it because you're on antibiotics? Her hand jerked slightly, causing her fork to clatter against her plate. Isabel's eyes flicked to her mother, confusion clouding her expression. I'm sorry, Clara, she said, her voice tight. What are you talking about, Thomas? I leaned back in my chair, savoring the moment. Antibiotics for gonorrhea, I said, each word deliberate. From your romantic getaway with Alexander. The room erupted. Clara's parents gasped in unison, their faces a mixture of shock and disgust. Isabel dropped her fork, her expression shifting from confusion to disbelief. Clara's carefully curated composure crumbled as she stammered. Thomas, please, not here. Why not here? I retorted, my voice rising. Isn't this the perfect place to discuss how my wife of 25 years betrayed me? How she risked everything for a sordid affair with a man I don't even know? Tears streamed down Clara's face as she buried her head in her hands. Her parents demanded answers, their voices a cacophony of outrage. But then, the most unexpected voice cut through the chaos. Stop it, Isabel shouted, her voice shaking with anger and fear. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. You're not the only one with secrets, Dad. The room fell silent, all eyes on her. My heart pounded as I tried to understand her words. What are you talking about? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Isabel hesitated, her gaze darting between Clara and me. Finally, she took a deep breath and said, "Alexander Moff, he's my biological father." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. For a moment, the world seemed to tilt on its axis, and I struggled to process what I'd just heard. "I found out last year," Isabel continued, tears streaming down her face. "I did a DNA test for a school project, and it didn't match yours. I confronted Mom, and she admitted it." "Isabel, please," Clara pleaded, her voice roaring with desperation. "This isn't the time." "No," Isabel shouted, her voice breaking. "I kept your secret because I didn't want to hurt Dad, but now, after everything you've done, he deserves to know." I stared at Clara, my hands gripping the edge of the table, so tightly my knuckles turned white. "Is it true?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of fury and heartbreak. Clara didn't answer, but her silence spoke volumes. The days that followed were a blur of rage, sadness, and determination. Clara's betrayal had cut me to the core, but Isabel's revelation had shattered what little was left of my world. My marriage, my family, my identity, it had all been built on lies. But instead of succumbing to despair, I channeled my pain into action. With the evidence I had gathered, I filed for divorce, ensuring that Clara's infidelity and the paternity revelation were at the center of the proceedings. I consulted the best divorce attorney in London, determined to strip Clara of the life she had built on deceit. Clara's attempts to negotiate were pathetic. She called, she begged, she even showed up at my office in tears. "I made a mistake, Thomas," she sobbed, "but we can fix this for Isabel's sake." "For Isabel's sake?" I repeated, my voice cold. "You mean the daughter you lied to me about for 20 years, the daughter whose life you've now torn apart?" Her tears didn't move me. I had already moved our joint savings into a private account, cutting off her access to the funds she had so shamelessly squandered. I also ensured Alexander Moff received a package. Photos of him and Clara, copies of her medical records, and a simple note: "Stay out of our lives or this goes public." It didn't take long for Mikhoff to disappear from the gallery scene. His reputation was irreparably damaged, and Clara, with no financial support and no credibility, was left with nothing but the wreckage of her choices. Months later, I stood in the garden of my new home. The crisp autumn air carried the scent of fresh grass and distant rain. Isabel sat beside me on the patio, her hands wrapped around a steaming mug of tea. Despite everything, she had chosen to stay with me, her love and loyalty unwavering. "You're still my dad," she had said the day I confronted her about Mikhoff. "That will never change." Her words had been a balm to my wounded heart. Though the past couldn't be undone, the future felt brighter with her by my side. Clara, on the other hand, had faded into obscurity. She had tried to contact me once, leaving a voicemail filled with apologies and pleas for forgiveness. I deleted it without listening to the end. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. Betrayal had torn my life apart, but it had also set me free. I was no longer bound by illusions or lies. I was free to start anew, and as the first stars began to appear in the twilight sky, I whispered to myself, "From the ashes of deceit, I rebuilt a life of truth." Betrayal may break you, but it can also set you free. With that, I raised my glass to the night to embrace the future that awaited me.